BoJack Horseman once did an interview which proved the saying, if you give people enough rope, they will hang themselves. And if you are about to enter into an uncomfortable conversation where it feels like the other person is coming in super rehearsed, I'm going to show you how to flip the script.
BoJack, a story came out this morning about the last days of Sarah Lynn. How did it make you feel?
Honestly, I felt relieved that now I can stop lying.
First thing you need to watch out for is, what are the lies someone is willing to admit to you?
Are the allegations in the story true?
They are. Sarah Lynn was 9 months sober. I invited her on a bender. We spiraled together for a little over a month, and then she overdosed.
On heroin you purchased for her.
Well, I didn't purchase it for her.
BoJack was willing to admit certain lies in this interview. He was willing to admit, yes, I did wrong. Yes, I gave her drugs. Yes, I was there. I was present. I think people are smart enough to realize that they can't go in guns blazing. They can't go in as holier than thou. They can't go in thinking that they are just the absolute best, because they need to come with a certain sense of realism. They need to bring a certain sense of realism to the table. And to bring that realism is, before you can poke holes in the armor, because before you can accuse someone of something, they will accuse themselves. So they come in thinking, I am willing to admit to this, and because I've already taken accountability for this, you don't need to question me further, because I have already understood the full depth of what needs to be understood.
I don't believe in rock bottoms. I've had a lot of what I thought were rock bottoms, only to discover another rockier bottom underneath. Eventually, I decided to stop waiting for something to change me. I had to make the change myself, and that's why I went to rehab, and I'm very proud to be 1 year sober next month.
And these lies they're willing to admit feed into rehearsed lines as well, rehearsed stories, and it will almost come across as like tangents they are ready to go into. So if you see BoJack, for example, BoJack is perfectly fine going into tangents of, and now I am 1 year sober, and he'll go into tangents of, I've already apologized to these people, I've done this, I've done whatever, I'm growing, I'm learning, I am this type of a person. And even with BoJack, you realize one thing, when he's saying all of these lines, he always looks up or he always looks away. Almost as if he's trying to remember what he's rehearsed, but it literally, to me, looks like, okay, start from the top and just say whatever it is. And then he'll look you in the eye afterwards. He'll remember what he was going to say, and then he'll look you in the eye and tell you exactly what he wanted to say. And what he's trying to say is the best version of what needs to be said. This is like media training, of I am going to, and it seems like, yes, he was going for an interview, so he went media trained of what he was going to say. Well, he technically was not very good media trained.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Sarah Lynn dying was part of that decision.
It was part of it, yes.
But even in discussions, don't undermine that the other person is not media training themselves, even if it's a 1v1. People are smart. Give people credit enough that they're thinking about what they're going to say and what they're willing to take accountability for.
Now that you're sober, do you think you'll stop making these mistakes?
I do. It's been a lot of work, but I look back at that other BoJack and I think, who is that?
And who was he?
I came from a broken home.
I think another thing to watch out for is when remorse turns into an origin story. When something turns into, something has happened, something bad has happened, and it's just added to their lore all of a sudden. Suddenly it's like, this terrible thing happened, but I've grown from it, and look, here's an accomplishment, which is exactly what BoJack did. So BoJack went, heard Sarah Lynn's death was a tragedy, but I have grown so much from this, now I am 1 year sober. She would have also been 1 year sober. She would have actually been longer sober if she didn't meet BoJack. He's already taken her accomplishments away. There's no remorse in that situation. It's okay, look, because of this person and almost like a sacrifice, but he doesn't even phrase it like she made a sacrifice. It's just, oh, this terrible thing happened and I've learned from it. But there are consequences. There are things still yet to be felt and conversations still yet to be had. And it's already turned into, okay, why are we discussing this? Why do we even need to bring this up anymore? Because I've already done all the hard work and the training and the learning. Why are we talking about? Why are we literally beating a dead horse? Why are we beating a dead horse? Actually, yeah, no, why are we literally beating a dead horse? Because he actually refers to himself as The old BoJack. This actually leads me into my next point because, wow. Sorry, I thought about that. No. Yes, because he talks about the old BoJack.
I felt like a Xerox of a person, you know what I mean?
But not anymore?
No. Now, I feel like me.
This is like a distancing technique, as if, like, you know, I was an older version, I was a younger version. There's a year difference, by the way, from what he's saying. But I was an older version, I was a younger version, that version of me is bad, and suddenly that version of me, all of my bad actions died with that version of me. I'm a new version of me. I have nothing to do with that old version of me. I am just who I am. I'm not that person anymore. Which is okay in certain circumstances. I'm not saying people can't grow and people can't change, but in between him saying that I am 1 year sober and I am a new BoJack and there's no old BoJack, he did two things. One, he said, there are people that I've already apologized to in private, so I don't need to bring up the people that I've apologized to.
I've made a lot of mistakes.
Can you share some of those other mistakes?
I don't think that it would be fair to the people who were affected by those mistakes, all of whom I've apologized to in private.
And in a second, I'll touch upon how he hasn't apologized to those people and how he admitted he didn't apologize to those people. But two, he went back into another tangent about his broken home, where he came from, and as if hurting people is enough, is a valid excuse. You know, it's a classic story where the victim becomes the abuser. BoJack's life was terrible growing up, it was traumatic growing up, but it is not an excuse for his actions down the line. Back to the apology. BoJack says that he's apologized to people in private and he's not going to discuss the details of the situation because it would be unfair to the people involved. And now this is a really interesting line, and it's really interesting because when you say, I'm protecting people's privacy, you know, all of this has happened, it seems fine on paper, but it doesn't actually translate to that the right conversations have taken place. It doesn't translate to the fact that full accountability was taken. It doesn't translate to the fact of if these conversations even happened, and it doesn't translate to the fact of if the other person forgave them. What if the right thing to do was to come out and come clean and say these things? By just saying it's all private, it's all separate, it's all dealt behind closed doors, it lives and dies behind closed doors. It's a nothing statement. It's a nothing statement because nothing is coming from it. Nothing is coming from it. And it's really interesting because just a few seconds later, Biscuits asked BoJack, you know, what would you say to Sarah Lynn's mother?
If you could talk to her mother now, what would you say to her?
I would say, I wish you could know how sorry I am.
You'd think that'd be someone he would speak to. What would you say to Sarah Lynn's mother? And he said, oh, well, you know, I would say I'm so sorry. You said you've apologized to a bunch of people. You haven't spoken to her mother? You haven't spoken to her mother. That's odd. So you've been caught in a lie. Now you've got another one. And she didn't even call it out. She didn't say you've been caught in a lie. But, you know, all of the people you can talk to, you'd think that's someone he would talk to. And then later, down the line in the interview, he says, did Sharona tell you? No one even brought up Sharona. And he said, when it came down to who gave Sarah Lynn alcohol as a child.
The first time Sarah Lynn ever got drunk, she was a child. And it was vodka, right?
How do you know about that?
You were bringing vodka to the set of Horsing Around.
Who told you all this stuff? Did Sharona tell you that? Because Sharona was a drunk too, so you can't trust a thing she says. Obviously, she has a vendetta against me. Besides, I already apologized to her.
Apologized for what?
Okay, when you put it all together, it looks bad.
Did Sharona tell you? Well, you can't trust Sharona. She's got a vendetta against me. She's an alcoholic. She can't be trusted. Absolute statement. She can't be trusted. And what's really interesting about that is, for someone who is so respectful of people's privacy, suddenly becomes the guy who has outed the fact that this woman is a recovering alcoholic, has outed the fact that, you know, has just blatantly thrown a thing and tarnished her whole reputation all at once. You don't care about people's privacy. You will say whatever you need to say to get through. Interesting is that BoJack made Sarah Lynn's death about himself and his journey. Like I said, it's part of his lore, part of his origin story. But there was an interesting thing that happened in the interview, and Biscuits is just asking questions. So one of the questions she said was, what do you think about Sarah Lynn's mother? What do you think about Sarah Lynn's mother, who is, doing these commercials and really tarnishing her name and is just really monetizing of her daughter's death?
Some have accused Sarah Lynn's mother of exploiting her death. When you hear all twerk and no play in a Geico commercial, or see Sarah Lynn's face on a billboard with the slogan, "I die for a Pepsi," how does that make you feel?
Sad. Angry. Honestly, it feels like that's what killed her.
Not the heroin.
No, you're right. It was mostly the heroin.
And then BoJack suddenly says the right things again. He's like, I'm angry, I'm hurt, it's so sad. But you can see it really comes down to finger pointing. When you suddenly misdirect the person, saying like, oh, what do you think about this person who's doing wrong? It's like, yes, this person is definitely doing wrong. I'm not doing wrong. That is so wrong. Look over there. When the chance comes to get pointed in a different direction, he then starts using minimizing language again, where she said, well, what killed her was the drugs that you gave her. And he said, yeah, mostly. Like, it's just the teensiest bit. Watch the language. Mostly, instead of, yes, it was, yeah, mostly, but it must have been other factors, might have been other factors, I don't know, more finger pointing. Even further down the line, he says something like, I'm not a criminal mastermind, I'm not that, like, he paints it out as if I'm not that smart. How could I figure it out? Really, like, I'm just not that type of person who could like pull off all of these stunts.
Called you from the planetarium?
Yes, I lied.
Weren't you afraid the police would check the phone records?
Oh, well, I wasn't thinking clearly. Guess I'm not a criminal mastermind.
And I think making yourself out to be not as smart, like, weirdly enough, I think he thinks he's really smart, but making yourself out to be, oh, I'm not that smart, I couldn't figure it out. How could someone like me figure it out? Like, it's another... it actually just feeds into lies they're willing to tell. It's not just lies about accountability, it's lies about, like, yeah, I'm willing to say I'm not that smart. Yeah, I'm willing to say that I'm just, whatever I need to say to get out of this situation as quickly as possible.
But the police did check the phone records, and your story checked out. There was a 2-minute phone call made from her phone to your phone, 17 minutes before you called 911.
Oh?
Biscuits was really smart too. From the very beginning, she framed it as, don't get defensive, I'm just asking questions. It's an interview, I'm just asking you questions. It's what I meant to do. We're having a discussion, we're having a talk. No need to get so heated.
I didn't purchase it for her.
There's no need to get defensive.
I'm just trying to be accurate.
But, like I said, give people enough rope to hang themselves. Once the confrontation starts spiraling, once it starts coming out, you can see it setting in. And with BoJack, you can actually see when the script flipped. You can see when, and it was when he lost control of the narrative, when things couldn't be rehearsed anymore, when all of the lies and excuses, anything he was saying just wasn't setting in. He said, like, she said, oh, you made a phone call from her phone. Why did you do that? And he's like, well, I just went outside, I panicked, I did this, but no one was buying it. And that, the fact that no one was buying it didn't turn into, did I do the wrong thing? That wasn't the question. It turned into, why are you asking me this? It really turned into, you can see it turning into anger. And BoJack is holding a mug the entire time, right? And he's holding a mug with both hands to be less aggressive, something to do with his hands, but even with the mug in the hand, you can start seeing the gestures start getting really, really aggressive.
Why?
I went into panic mode.
And then what did you do?
I thought we were going to talk about other stuff.
What did you do after you called your own phone, BoJack?
I went outside to the parking lot.
And you just waited there for 17 minutes.
Why are you asking about this?
Then he says something damning, which is unrehearsed, can only come in real time. And he says, look at Princess Carolyn over there. She's alive. She's alive?
You keep looking over to your manager. Can we talk about your relationship with her?
Princess Carolyn?
You dated her for 7 years?
Yes, and look, she's alive.
He could have said many different things in that situation. He could have said, we had a long-term relationship. We've been together for so many years. She can vouch for me. She can vouch that I'm a good person. I have a lot of love for her. He does say I've got a lot of respect for her, but it feels rehearsed again. It feels like, oh, what can I say that's good about her? She's a manager. She used to be an assistant and became a manager, and now she has her own company, and she's a good mother, and it goes into like this rehearsed thing. And Princess Carolyn does fall for it immediately, you know? Like, she's happy, like, oh, he said all of this. But
Did it ever get complicated, working with her while maintaining a sexual relationship?
Well, she's always been good at keeping her personal and professional lives separate.
Quite an accomplished woman.
You said it. She was an agent's assistant when I met her, and now she's running her own company. Plus, she's a great mom.
a few seconds later, he said, Sarah Lynn was completely different from all the other women I was with. From the woman you were with for 7 years, who's standing there, who stood by you through everything. That woman's not different?
Any connection between those other women and Sarah Lynn?
There's no connection between anyone. That's what I keep saying. Sarah Lynn wasn't like those other girls. I loved Sarah Lynn.
That's not a woman that you love. That woman, well, her purpose is that she's there. She's alive. She's there. She's there to make you look good. What is it? Just answer the question of what that actually means. Like, is the bare minimum all the women I come into contact with, not all of them are dead? That's insane. When the discussion turns into other women from his past, he uses language and he uses statements like, we both got something out of it. You know, and I think that's something that he needs to say. I think he needs to say it for himself, and I think he needs to he's just saying like, oh yeah, we both got something out of it constantly.
Marcy, yes, she was the president of my fan club.
You slept with her.
We had a lovely evening together. We both got something out of it.
Even though he's being told, what about this and this and this and this? Tell us exactly what people got out of it. You know, since you're saying this is such a mutually good relationship for everyone, why are you not admitting where things are wrong? Why are you not taking that accountability?
Did you take a high school girl to her prom?
That was a family friend.
Did you help a teen mom sneak out of rehab and take her to a high school party?
I didn't take her. We went together.
Is it true you once dated a woman who'd just woken up from a 30-year coma? Were you attracted to her naivete too?
What does this all have to do with
You
it?
had sex with the president of your fan club. You had sex with your agent's assistant. You party with underage girls. You don't see a pattern here?
That's when BoJack kind of goes crazy, because he starts blaming everything. He blames the universe, he blames society, he blames how things are set up against him.
You think everything is this nefarious scheme. Most of the bad shit that happens in this world isn't because of wicked plots and machinations. It's just because we're all a bunch of stupid, hungry, horny little goons just grabbing at shit, hoping it'll press that little button in our brain that says, okay, you're happy now. That's not an abuse of power.
He says, you're trying to paint this picture of me. No, I'm a good guy. I'm a good person. You're the one trying to flip this narrative. You are trying to say something that's incorrect. He interrupts. He says all of these things. And he goes into rehearsal mode as he says all of these things.
Do you really believe you didn't have the power in all of those relationships?
I am an addict. One of the first things that I had to accept was my own powerlessness.
But that's...
I understand what I did was wrong. I'm not denying that. But you're trying to paint this picture. You're making it out like I'm a bad guy, and I'm not. I'm not that guy you're saying I am.
And he actually, you know, saying like where he just said to the Princess Carolyn, look, she's alive, she's there. He dehumanizes everyone. He takes away the human experience and breaks it down to all humans are just trying to press that happy button in their brain and nothing else. That's just what it is. And it's interesting because it kind of just, he's outed himself. He said what his life philosophy is. His life philosophy is to chase dopamine and be happy and do, and he's just as, everyone is as bad as me then, right? Everyone's just out for themselves. Everyone is just out to get a dopamine hit. Everyone is out to just be... Everyone's just out for like a high and a rush. Which isn't true. I'm not saying there isn't merit in that thought process. I understand that sometimes you can feel like the whole world is against you, and you can feel like, you know, you're sane and everyone else is the crazy one in this situation. For BoJack, it's just about making excuses. It's just about saying, I'm a good guy, I took her to rehab, I did all of this, everyone got something out of a situation. He's a narcissist in that sense. He has an idealized version of himself in his head. He thinks that he beats himself up the most already, so he has to live with the consequence of his actions. He beats himself up the most. Why is everyone else like, everyone else is just doing it to get like a sick kick out of it, you know, like they're just doing it to hurt him on purpose. Everyone's obsessed with him to hurt him on purpose. That's what everyone else's agenda is, you know. So it really is everyone's out for themselves, and later on he says like, oh, Biscuits was just doing it for ratings, she doesn't care, and but he completely ignores Princess Carolyn in the parking lot, about what he said to hurt her feelings on live television.
He doesn't even care. This is just a ratings win she can use as leverage for her next big paycheck.
Maybe.
She was all over the place. I think people are going to see that she was just out to get me. I mean, people are going to see that, right?
Well, I guess we'll find out tonight.
And being that self-absorbed and being so out for himself, he made that terrible decision to go out, wait in the parking lot, first make himself an alibi, then go out in the parking lot, wait for 17 minutes, and those 17 minutes could have saved this girl's life.
I just keep thinking about those 17 minutes. You waiting in the parking lot after she died. But she wasn't actually dead yet. She died in the hospital.
Right, but at the time, I
You ever wonder what would have happened if you didn't take those 17 minutes? You gave Sarah Lynn alcohol when she was a child. She then became an addict.
Well-
When she was intoxicated, you had sex with her. And when she was sober, you gave her the heroin that killed her. Then, in an effort to cover for yourself, you waited to call the paramedics that might have saved her life. And you don't think you have any power over women.
And after it was over, there was no reflection. He didn't admit that he had any power over women. He just said, I have no power. It's just like, and later on he says it's just hip to say stuff like that. In fact, he says something even more funny. He says, if you think about all the women I hurt, I've also hurt men. As if that makes it even.
kept bringing it back to women. These women I hurt, because that's what's hip now, right? Hurting women. But I have also hurt a lot of men.
I told you to do just the one interview and go back to Connecticut.
Almost like spreading it thin. Saying I've hurt so many people, it doesn't even count at this point. This is just who I am. Maybe other people are too sensitive. Maybe it's just lost in translation. Maybe something, maybe that, like it's just excuses over excuses. And a self-absorbed person does this to keep the idea of themselves in their imagination of who they think they are, their moral compass and all of that. It's to keep that image intact. Therefore villainizing the person in front of them. And therefore making it okay for the person in front of them to be the consequence. And whenever they're confronted, they have like a pile of excuses. They've got a pile of excuses. They've got a pile of accomplishments. They've got a pile of everything they need to have, a whole bundle to walk out of that conversation as intact. If you find yourself in a discussion like this, I'm not saying the goal is to change the other person. I'm not saying bringing up very valid points is going to change someone's mind. It's not going to change someone's mind once they've made up their mind, because breaking someone's self-image is incredibly difficult, and you will be able to tell the difference between someone who's willing to put in the work and someone who is not willing to put in the work. It's clear as day as the person who comes prepared into these talks and someone who comes open-minded into these discussions. And it's just something to be mindful of. And I think Biscuits keeping her curiosity, trying different angles, and just generally maintaining her composure until actually she couldn't keep her composure anymore, where he said Sarah Lynn is like a daughter to me, and then he admitted to sleeping with her 20 years later, is, I think at that point it was too much, where she said, you do have power over women, you do, you were the victim growing up, you were hurt, and you have been taking out that hurt on other people. And you have been taking out the hurt on other people for the remainder of your life. Hurt people, you have just been... You say there's no power structure, you say there's no dynamic, but you have been... At one point you felt powerless, and you have been exercising that power over other people for a very long time. And that pattern comes from the way that you treat women. I read somewhere that this particular interview was injected in the show because people kept on making BoJack the hero of the series, and they were just missing the point of who this character was meant to be. Don't just assume when you see a protagonist in a show that you're meant to like them. You don't have to like every protagonist. Just because the story is from their point of view doesn't mean all of their opinions are right and factual. I read that the writers put in this scene to correct all of that, because everyone kept saying that, BoJack is great and he's just learning and he's a victim and he's all of that. So they had to really do something that was so stark, so obvious, so in your face, where all of his talking points came out and all of the counter talking points came out in the show in real time. It is nice actually when you make a series like this, it's a Netflix show and it happened over a period of time, that season 1 can come out, people can have online forum and discussions about it, and then season 2 can come out, and people are actually thinking and interacting, and the show is changing as people's opinions are changing, and I think that's what I really like about shows like this, that when it's elongated over a period of time, it's almost like you get the audience and the writers and everything comes together to create something that opens up a dialogue for us to talk about, which is exactly what we're doing right now. I started this channel a year ago, so I just wanted to end the video by saying I've just hit 500 subscribers, and that is really cool. And if you're one of the 500, thank you so much. It's a huge accomplishment, which I've been trying to get to for a while, so that's really amazing. So thank you. I think I'll end the video with some words from Princess Carolyn.
What do you think?
I think you have 3 hours before this interview airs and your world changes completely. You should think about how you want to spend that time. I'm going home to my daughter.